Welcome to the Travel Ones podcast. Today, my guest is Derik Fay. He is the entrepreneur, CEO of F3 Management. Kind of trying to figure him out. He's just a business guy, just a regular old. I buy businesses, I sell businesses, just a business guy. But you've kind of taken on a different role, I'd say, in the last year or so. From what I can figure, is making yourself more public and getting out in the public eye a little bit more so than just running businesses like you have been. How are you today, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. Slight correction, 3F management.
I knew I was going to mess that up.
F3, 3F, F1 probably with
F,
three off.
yeah, that's right. I was just thinking there you go.
And despite what some people think, 3F is not three generations of phase. I come from poverty. Both my grandfather and my dad were mailmen. But anyway, thanks for having me on.
Well, since you corrected me, I'll correct you. It's mail courier because,
Yeah, there you go. Fair enough.
we'll be politically correct if you have to.
We don't want to get ourselves in trouble 10 seconds into the podcast.
We'll wait till like an hour in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can hold off that long, but we'll see.
I hear you. I'm really excited to talk to you because, like I said, I look at you. You're a business guy. I mean, you buy gyms and you run them for a while, you sell them, you get out of them, you make your money, and you just keep looking at different opportunities.
Correct.
Kind of. But why in the last year and a half, 2 years, have you kind of made yourself more of a public figure?
Yeah. So it started. I hate the word accident because nothing happens on accident. So let's say by happenstance. For the past, 20 plus years, as you said, I've built over 30 companies from the ground up. And in my area, people, oh, you're the guy that owns this or that. Sure.
Yeah.
And if you had asked me a year and a half ago about social media, I would have laughed in your face. I was the dad who had Instagram to watch his teenage children and had 6 followers. And I never went on it ever. I didn't even know how to post or do any of that type of stuff.
That's what daughters are good for.
What's that?
That's what daughters are good for.
Yeah, that's right. They did teach me quite a bit, by the way.
I know the feeling.
One of the things I do and did was Fortune 500 companies, publicly traded companies. From time to time, will have young CEOs that just aren't quite CEOs. They're founders, but founders aren't always CEOs, and CEOs aren't always founders, as you know. And so they either call me in to help through certain situations or at times step in as their interim CEO. And so this was one of those situations. Young founder and CEO didn't quite know what he was doing, but had a great company. They had an offer to be bought out for $40 million. It was believed by the company they were worth 60, but the other company was not moving because they believed the young CEO couldn't get them past that bottleneck. So brought me in, gave me 20% equity to serve as the interim CEO, did a big public speech in South Florida, 3,000 people, blah, blah, blah. That was on a Friday night. Saturday, Sunday, Monday afternoon, that company that was offering 40 upped their offer to 75 million because I was going to be the CEO. So besides making a nice chunk of change for 2 days, a bunch of media outlets found that interesting. Forbes did an article, all these things happened. And I was like, oh, that's great. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I was more excited about my $15 million arbitrage in 2 days. So then I picked up my phone a week later and it had 35,000 followers. It's like, what the heck is this? And so I started to get some PR people reach out. And honestly, a 25-year-old kid and his partner, 26 or 24, said, hey, Bradley reached out, said he wanted me to come on the podcast. And I said, yeah, if you want to come out to Vegas and film me, that's fine. So they filmed, sent me a bunch of what they called reels, which of course I know what they are now, posted them, and things just went wild. And so in the past 18 months, millions of followers, tens of millions of views. And so now it's just, I actually really enjoy pouring into my DMs and young entrepreneurs asking for life advice and business advice, going on all these great podcasts, and the unexpected, although maybe I should have expected, the deal flow for my company has 10x'd.
Yeah,
and opportunities that despite my skills, I may not have been able to participate in, I am now, which is interesting, frustrating, and exciting at the same time. Like, so now I get calls from, the commissioner of the NBA who wants me to be in the expansion deal. And why? No, not Derik, because you have extensive history, but because I saw a 30-second reel and thought it was pretty great. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Who is
Yeah.
this? Is not really you.
Yeah.
So it's a wild, it's been a wild ride and a really curious and interesting reiteration or reinvention of what I've always done.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's kind of a whirlwind, though, in a sense.
It absolutely. I mean, listen, like I said, I went from being a very successful regional entrepreneur in a really meaningful way to now, Netflix is doing a documentary on my life. I'm on every podcast, speaking around the country. So yes, a whirlwind is a wonderful description.
There you go.
Trying not to take it too seriously.
Yeah.
It's meaningful, and I've found great fulfillment in speaking. So yeah, it's been great.
So because of your background, and I've listened to a lot of the shows, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm always perplexed. Like, someone sees Derik Fay walking around the nice suit, the perfectly coiffed stubble, Bill, you're built, you got the watt, you got everything, but yet you don't come from that. So I think kind of the, people, I'm sure, prejudge you and say, oh, you were lucky, you were born into it. Oh, you're around your whole life, this and that. And then you kind of share your story. And it's like, not really.
Not really. Well, not really is the biggest understatement of the century. To say I came from the gutter would be a nice expression. I mean, I'm not sure that you asked, but I think that's the opening. I was born to a single mom.
Yeah.
My parents got divorced really, really early. My mom remarried the most horrific human being you could ever imagine. And from the ages of 4 to almost 11 or 12, we were horrifically abused, tortured, physically, emotionally, in every way you could ever imagine. And I say horrific, I'm not over exaggerating. I can't think of a bigger word than horrific. And my 2 siblings, one was in prison for 10 years, the other is still in prison. So it absolutely destroyed them in every way a person can be destroyed. But for some reason, it didn't me. And I shouldn't say for some reason. And that's why I wear it as a badge of honor. And why I talk about it so openly is because it seems to be it was certainly then and still today, a big dark secret that no one talks about. And that makes it so much worse for the families going through it. And so I now at 45 am comfortable talking about it, because I wasn't always. That's something that comes with age, like other things. And I think there's some real value in both talking about it just on the surface and to let people know. And this is, if I have a platform, this is it in a sentence. If I can be here, because Hollywood couldn't have written a script that would have put me here from where I began, anybody can do this.
I have some family members that just went through that, and I just found out about it 9 months ago. And you're like, what? Anyway,
my father's side, my father didn't know until I was 21 before I left Rhode Island. My extended family on my father's side didn't know until 6 months ago when I went back to film the back home portion for the documentary. They didn't even know. That's how much of a secret it generally is.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Do you think if you hadn't had this whirlwind of fame in the last 18 months, I mean, I don't know how much you share with your family and your friends and your daughters and all that about it, but like all of a sudden now it's out there. Like, especially when this documentary hits. I didn't even know about the documentary, but it's going to be out there. It's like, and so you're not he's just some rich guy and he got lucky in business.
Yeah, no, I think, well, first of all, I don't believe in luck, but I'm certainly never, there's an expression, what is it, a silver spoon? I like to say I come from a spork, those little plastic, combination things. But no, listen, age appropriately, I've always communicated with my children. My daughters knew all of this. Of course, they don't know all of it yet, because there's some stuff that would be difficult for an adult to handle, but they knew enough to know where Dad came from. And that set a morality and appreciation in them that I don't know they could have ever had. And as I started to raise my daughters, and a lot of my peers have the same kind of concerns, is what made me was not having, and my children want for nothing.
Right.
And so throughout my life, I always look for ways to balance the wealth that we had, but not wanting them to be spoiled brats.
Yeah.
And I think I've done a good job, although most of the credit has to go to them and not me, as it does for anybody, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my own daughters at that moment.
For sure. If you want, I've got an incredible story, I think, that sums it all up with my daughter. So I got her first car, let's say 6 months ago. Now, this was an example of me not being necessarily a great father by my terms. So we got in the car to go, and I was so excited. Like, I'm going to buy my daughter. So I'm thinking, where do you want to go? Mercedes, BMW, what do you want to get? And she looks at me, she goes, well, I know exactly what I want. So I'm excited. I'm literally driving in the direction of Mercedes for my 17-year-old child after I preach about not in, so anyway. And she turns her phone and shows me a picture of a Equinox. Now, I understand that's not like a really bad car, but if she had showed me an $80,000 Mercedes, I would have went and got it for her. So I looked at it and I said, really? And I said, why do you want that car? And as a father, this is gonna give you goosebumps because I know what's coming and I have it. And she said, well, I thought about it a lot and I knew you'd buy me anything I wanted. But one, when I have a really nice car, I want to be the one that buys it. And two, I didn't want people to think I was a spoiled rich kid.
Wow.
So whatever I did, I think I did something right. But again, that's an example of why it's more about her than me, because I was ready to make the wrong decision. Okay.
I want to see how you feel when I asked my daughter to pick me up from the airport one time. I'm like, yeah, go and take my Jeep, whatever.
Yep.
Of course, she gets into an accident on the way to the airport. A small fender bender. She just made a little turn. So it's like I get in the car. I'm like, yeah, I'm so happy. You drove my car. We're here. Well, something happened on the way here.
Hey, the only question is, are you okay?
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, she was fine.
Perfect.
Not good. It's just a dent.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've talked about this in other podcasts. I think the biggest mistake, one of the mistakes parents make is inadvertently prioritizing things over their kids. And it's done so subtly that I think parents don't even realize it. Like when you yell at a 2-year-old child for spilling something in the back of the car. There's a difference between an accident and being irresponsible.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Or a dent in the car and the first thing you do is get mad and not ask if they're okay. These are subtle things, but coming from where I come from, I know that these verbal cues add up and take away from a person's ability to be confident and self-esteem, all these types of things.
There's another real famous public speaker, Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of him.
I heard him say one time, and it changed my whole mindset. He was talking to one of the people at his seminars, and he said he hated his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the things he did and all that. And Tony's like, you need to call him tonight and thank him because he showed you exactly how not to be, how you don't want to be. And it just made that kid was like, what? No, I don't like it. And I'm like,
it's true.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's also, bad things happen and they can destroy you or they can lift you up. And I've had people ask me, like, how did you know to be a good father? And I said exactly that. I said, I had the blueprint.
Yeah.
I just did the opposite of what some of my family members did to me. So I never yelled at my child. I always bend down on a knee when they were kids and talked eye to eye. I don't raise my voice. I literally didn't know it. No father knows what you're doing until you've done it. I just did the opposite. I didn't do the things that made me feel small and hurt. I did only the things that I had either wanted or seen done that I felt was uplifting. Right. Now, of course, I made mistakes. I'm far from a perfect parent. Far from. But I've done some good things along the way. Hopefully 51%.
Give or take.
Give or take a percentage.
How much traveling are you doing now?
More than I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah.
So I've traveled in the last 18 months more than the prior 43 years.
Yeah. How's that? Is it totally different now, or are you getting used to it?
I love it.
Got
You know,
it.
the only downside for me is my daughters. My daughters don't get to come with me.
Yeah.
No, I'm divorced, so what I try to do is travel on the times that I don't have my daughters. But you know, this is a perfect example coming up this weekend where I have to travel on a weekend where I'm supposed to have them, but I have to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I struggled for about 2 weeks. I'm talking about extreme guilt, and
Yeah.
I've literally never done it in their entire lives. But I made a promise to myself when they were born that I wouldn't miss certain things. And this will be one of the first times. Now they're 15 and 17. I think they'll probably survive 2 days. But you know, but back to the traveling in a whole, I really enjoy it because I enjoy broadening my horizons. I had always felt like a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
And I think no matter who you are, no matter how much you know in your mind your skills can compete on a really large level, if you don't get out there and try and explore and be around bigger people, because there's always someone better and richer and more whatever.
Yeah.
And so that is the part of traveling that I have been enjoying, is to do my thing in bigger rooms.
Do you set aside any time to, like, if you're going to go to San Diego, do you set up any time for fun, or is it literally go in, do your thing, and then get out?
The only thing that I consider fun is no matter where I am, I base my hotels on gyms. So if there's going to be a gym there, that's my priorities in life are my daughters, my health, meaning the gym, and family, like, and then work, right?
Yeah.
So the gym is my fun, and some people don't get it, but if you're a gym person, I think you would get it. Um, that's my fun.
I was going to ask you because obviously you're built, you've been, you trained as a bodybuilder and all that.
Yeah.
And how much of the traveling has it affected your ability to work out?
I mean, it hasn't affected my ability to work out because I prioritize it. I mean, it's
Okay.
just that simple, right? But it does make the dietary portion of
That
things
was my next
rather,
one. Yeah.
rather challenging. And it's not even so much that I'm eating horrible, although sometimes I certainly am, right? I can't just go to the fridge and have my pre-made meals and things
Yeah.
like that. But it's also the jet lag, and it definitely makes it harder. But luckily, I've been doing it since I was 13 years old. So even if you have a bad week, I know it doesn't mean you have a bad month.
Right.
It just means the next couple days back, it's like, oh my God, but you're used to that, right? But I could see now how difficult it would be for people to either get started or once they fall off, have that feeling. Because even after a bad week for me, if I'm just exhausted traveling, I didn't go to the gym the whole week, I've eaten like crap, even me after 30 years, I'm like, oh my God. So imagine having never done that.
And not having
So I've really had an appreciation for that for the first time.
I had an appreciation. When I worked at a rodeo, and a lady was walking around with her little prepared meal. I mean, she was built. She was like a CrossFitter,
Mhm.
and she's
Yep.
eating her chicken and her rice. And I go, "What are you doing?" She
Yep.
goes, "Her watch went off. It was time to
Yep.
eat." And so she gets in her backpack, pulls out the food, eats it right in the middle of the convention hall. Didn't care.
I used to do that. Now I'm just not that serious. Back in the day, I had dreams of, doing something I could have never done. As a 20-year-old kid, I wanted to be a professional bodybuilder and all these types of things. But now I call it South Beach sexy. I want to be able to take off my shirt and feel good about myself. If I can do that, home run. I'm 45. That's all I
Yeah.
care. That's all I care. Because some people are like, wow, you look like you're in really great shape. And my favorite expression is, it's all for show. There's no
Overall,
practicality. There's no practicality here. I just pick up stuff and put it down.
that's I saw O'Hearn talk about how much when he was training
Mike,
the whole
yeah.
time. Yeah, how much he was eating, and it was like, holy. I mean, he said he spent like $50,000 just on food, just on pure eggs, chicken.
Most people don't understand. If you want to everyone says, I want to lose weight. You don't want to lose weight. You want to lose fat and gain muscle.
Yeah,
And gaining muscle, it requires eating more. That's the glorious thing about it. In a healthy lifestyle, you get to eat way more than someone that's trying to lose weight.
yeah. That was crazy though. It's like
It is crazy. Mike's a
it's,
good guy too.
it's part of your life though. I mean, it's as important as the gym.
Well, I think Mike's a vampire, so I think he's like 2,000 years old, and he looks better than
Give
any
give
18-year-old
give,
on the planet.
give or
I
take.
went I went back and looked at when he was an American Gladiator.
I
He was
didn't know.
20, and now he's 50. And I'm like, what? He's a time traveler.
Yeah, and just huge still. I just saw him on the
Oh,
WWE thing. He's huge.
it beyond being huge, he is extremely strong and athletic, and I mean, yeah, he's an anomaly.
Yeah, yeah. I yeah. You know, I literally just saw. Remember, I was just thinking. I just saw him at the WWE thing.
Mhm.
He's flexing, doing all. I'm like, what is he? Late 50s?
He's like 55. I was in this funny story. I was in LA, and he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey D, let's get a workout in." And I was like, "Okay, but no one's filming me next to you. You look too goddamn good."
Yeah. Like, yes and no. No, that's all good though. Yeah. Of all the like 18, let's go 18 months back.
Yeah.
You know, who were you listening? Were you listening to motivational speakers? Were you doing that kind of thing, or you were just doing work?
The first time I ever listened to a podcast was the first one that I did. The first time I ever went to an event where there were speakers was when I was on stage speaking. So I just wasn't that guy, because of where I came from. I know I'm a hustler, and I think it's actually a beautiful word. People use it in an adverse way. But all I did was continually bet on myself from the age of 6 or 7 all the way through today. But prior to the social media, I wasn't into any of it. I was head down, building businesses, doing what I do, looking for opportunity. And then that event that we talked about happened. And, my first event, I went up on stage. I didn't really overly prepare for it. Brought the house down. And it was at Ryan Pineda's event, WealthCon. And the event coordinator came up, was like that was amazing. People were, how many times have you been on stage? I was like, well, I didn't want to tell anybody, but that was my first time. I was waiting, if I told them it was the first time, they'd be like, maybe we don't want you to come.
Yeah. We'll put you on the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. But no, so to answer your question more directly, I hadn't done any of the things that people are now saying you have to do to become successful. It's just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, you can do it and it might make you more successful, but absent doing it does not mean that you will not be.
Yeah. And some of it, at least in my opinion, is just persistence, right? I mean,
of course,
I all the time I get, how'd you get Em Smith on the show? How'd you get Derik Fay? How'd you get, it's like, well, I've been doing it for 5.5 years.
Right.
It's like,
and sometimes the hardest thing to do is ask.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, right?
I got that. So as a father of two, you'll kind of appreciate this. My daughter played lacrosse through high school. Because she was playing lacrosse, I said, don't worry about getting a job. I said, you'll get a job for the next 40, 50 years of your life.
Yep. I do the same thing with Sophia.
So she never had a job in high school. She graduates. Her last game was like in May, and then she graduated in June. And I go, she's going to go to a local college, Cal State Northridge. And I go, she goes, hey, her favorite band was 30 Seconds to Mars, the Jared Leto band. And I guess on their Facebook page, they had said, hey, we're looking for a college intern to work, at the office and all that. And she goes, do you think I should apply? And I go, fuck yeah.
Why not?
You go, you get to tell all your friends that you applied to work for 30 Seconds to Mars. I go, done.
Do it. Yeah.
She applies. They go, she comes over. She goes, hey, they want to interview me. Should I go? I'm like, fuck yeah.
Like, why aren't you on your way?
I go, you probably won't get it. She never had a job. I go, you probably won't get it, but you get to tell all your friends you went and applied. She goes, she gets the job. So she's now working for Jared. And this was during his Oscar run and all that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And at the end, I said she was going to do it for a year. And right at the end, they were going to tour with Linkin Park.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked her to go and do social media while they're on tour. Should I go? And I go, what? It's like, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
You go, you're gonna miss 1/4 of college.
Who cares?
But you can do that,
Right. Whenever.
Cal State Northridge will be there. So she does it. She goes on tour, does all that, comes back, she quits and starts working at other things. She calls me like it's right before we started. You got a text from your daughter?
Yeah.
I'm at the rodeo and I go, hey, I'm at work. Don't don't call me at night. I go, I'm at the day, I'm running. I go, unless it's an emergency, don't call.
Right.
My daughter calls me, and I'm like, okay. I think she was 20 at the time. I'm like, pregnant, DUI, accident, I'm quitting college, I'm getting married, all these things. So I pick up,
Sure.
I go, what's up? She goes, you got a second? I go, I got a second. Yeah. I go, what's going on? She goes, I got a job today. I go, Allie, I'm at my job. Like, so she ended up getting another personal assistant for a very famous, very, very famous person. I was like,
Yep.
how'd you get that job? She goes, I just applied.
Imagine that.
And I'm like, how many of your friends would like to work where you're going to be working? She goes, and everyone asks, how'd you get the job? She just applied. So when you go say, just ask,
Just ask.
I
I mean,
it's almost that
I mean,
simple.
you would be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't, how far I have gotten by being the guy that's never afraid to ask for anything. The people that are around me a lot, they're like, I don't understand how you can just ask for that. And I'm like, I don't understand how you can.
Yeah.
Like, what does the word no do to you? It doesn't do anything to me. I get excited when somebody says no. Please say no to me about something in this call, because you'll see my light bulb go on. That just means, oh,
You
now
got
I
to do
have to
something
try. I
else.
have to try a different way.
Yeah.
Okay, we're playing now. Let's go.
So it was hard for me to not ask these people to be on my show. And I'm like, I've been preaching to my daughter to do that. She does
That's
it.
right.
It works.
Yep.
And I wasn't taking the advice to myself.
Which I think is probably common.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I'm like, well, I got to step up now. No more
That's
messing
right.
around.
That's right. My oldest daughter has that trait. She is fearless.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll see how that works out.
You got about 5 more years.
Yeah, exactly. She's also fearless of me. So there's sometimes some butting of heads. It's hilarious. She's a carbon copy of me in ways you can't imagine. So when I am the most frustrated with her, it's because it's me.
Yeah.
Like, thank God I don't have a twin. We'd be fighting all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just wait. It gets interesting.
I'm sure it already has. But
Well, because I told them, I said, look, I go for 18 years of my life, my job was to make sure you didn't fall off the cliff.
Mhm.
And I go, now you're in your 20s, you're in college, and now they're moms.
Yeah.
I go, the cliff's still there, and I know it's there because I'm in my 50s now. But
Right.
I have to let you get close to that cliff. I don't
Yep.
want you to go in it, but I need you to know that it's there.
Yep.
I could show you the bridge, but I know you're going to go see where the cliff leads you.
That's true.
It's
See,
tough to let go.
my concern is that both Sophia, my oldest, and myself, we see the cliff and we jump off, assuming we'll find the parachute on the way down. And I found it almost every time, so I'm trying to teach her that it's not always there.
Yeah. I know you don't believe in luck, right? You said it's hard
I
work
don't.
on it.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's. I mean, it's not my phrase, but I love the statement that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And not preparing to succeed, but
Yeah, yeah. Any cliche that you want, but they're all true, by the way.
exactly. They're a cliche for a reason.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's the biggest difference from making money in lawn mowing to now, making 25, $15 million on deals? Is it just zeros?
There's literally no difference.
Because that's what
I
I
don't
think.
believe it. I don't believe that there are nuances for sure,
Yeah.
but anything that's big was once small, and anything that's small can be big, and so it's just a process of a lot of, to use a tech term, ones and zeros. And once you know where they all fit, having gone through being a micro landscape company all the way through nine-figure companies, you start to realize that the foundation of every company is nearly identical. The organization of every company is nearly identical. The marketing strategies, although can be different left to right, are the same up and down. And so learning that affords me the flexibility and bandwidth, which I've done, participate in almost any industry. And when an industry comes up that I haven't participated in, I say yes, of course. Well, I've always said yes to every opportunity,
Yeah.
but I think it's an important message that people understand. I've had wildly successful tech people and I say, I've got a great opportunity in a non-tech company, and they go, well, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, oh. And so it's not a fault owned by the unsuccessful. It's a human fault, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Everyone has this belief that I can only be good at one thing. No matter how big I went, I could never go another direction. And it's simply not true.
Why do you think that is? Why do people think that way? Is it cultural? Is it societal? Is it
I think it's societal. I think the reason most people don't succeed in life is, let's go back. The reason everybody goes to these masterminds and buys these courses and all this stuff is because they're trying to learn how to become successful. But the truth of the matter is, most people need to unlearn all of the broken mindsets and things that have been spoon fed to them by their parents, no fault of those because their parents fed it to them, school system, society, all of these types of things. Because even if I give, and I've done this, even if I give someone a plan or offer them a cash flow business, most of them will find a reason why it couldn't be possible, or I can't do that. So you don't need to learn, you need to unlearn and let go of all the shit that people have told you is the reality of life, because most of it's just not true. If it were, I wouldn't be here talking to you. That's just it. I'm a living, breathing example of what I'm saying.
I was gonna say it's kind of like diet, right? It's like everyone knows Coke is bad for you.
Right.
Pepsi, so I mean, I'm not picking on Coca-Cola product, Pepsi products, whatever.
Unless Coke wants me to be their sponsor person, in which case Coke is delicious.
And it's okay. Everyone knows it's bad for. I mean, like, but yet it's still out there, and that people are still, sugar of any type, right? It's like,
well, I mean, but if you have a Coke once in a while, it's also not going to kill you.
Right.
Right. But to your point, yes, people do know what they should and shouldn't do to some extent. That may be an overarching sentiment, because I do now talk to a lot of people where some of the things that I say are like, one, to me, if you asked me what's 1 + 1 and I said 2, it seems that simplistic to me. And I say it and people are like,
2? How'd you get 2?
I can see their brain explode. And and it's actually doing this over the past 18 months. It's shown me, not that I am smarter than anyone, because I actually don't think I'm smarter than most people. I think I have a ton of common sense and a lot of life experience, and those two things put together can make you really lethal. And those things are lacking in a lot of people. And I don't think, by the way, that most people, that it's their fault.
I agree. I mean, like, well, when you grow, I mean, I'm a little bit older, but growing up, it's like you had the food pyramid. You're supposed to eat this, this, and this, and this, and this, and it's like now you find out, well, you really shouldn't eat some of those things.
That's right. That's still happening, by the way. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so for me, and I think everything ties back to my childhood. I have never accepted anything at face value, ever. Not one day in my life. Even if I know, like in my mind, I think that's pretty certain, like the sky's blue and the grass is green, I will explore the fact that I might be wrong, because most of the time I'm not different than anybody else. I can be misled just as easy as anybody else. The difference is I don't accept things at face value. And that's why I don't argue with people. When someone is arguing and negotiating, I always end it with, here's my opinion. That being said, you might be right. Because I don't know everything. Right? And that ends it. If something starts to get escalated every time I go, you know what? That is how I feel, but you might be right. Where are you going to go with that? And by the way, they very well may
be right.
They very well may be.
Do you think, at least for me, I see a lot of similarities because I've watched a lot of your videos. You seem like an observationalist. Like you're trying to read people, and I think with your background growing up, that's kind of made you maybe a little standoffish. Like, hey, let me check this out real quick and see what the surrounding is.
Well, I think that comes from, let me think this through. I had to hide a really big secret.
Yeah.
And so I had to, as a little boy, figure out how to, let's be honest, fool adults. So I had to watch the way I moved, if I moved a certain way, or if I flinched because I had a bruise, would that teacher see and ask me why I did that? And then they would tell, and then that man would kill my mother, right? Pretty dramatic, but true. And
yeah.
then I had to perfect communication for the same reasons.
That's what I
And
mean.
I've
Yeah.
thought about this a lot lately because I never had to talk about this stuff. But now that I do, I'm getting better at evaluating and articulating because I think this stuff can be valuable for some people.
Well, absolutely. Because I've seen some of your things where you talk about CEOs and how they talk to their employees and this and that, and
Yep.
that's missing. Like,
Huge.
you know, I think it's super huge because all of a sudden they're just talking to you how they think they would want to be talked to versus how do
Right.
they talk to them.
Right. Yeah. And it's not even how they would want to be talked to because they're not even giving them that service. They're treating them like they're better than them because their position in business is higher. And besides it being just plain wrong on a human side, in my opinion, it makes you a piece of shit. And that's because I don't care where I am, how high I rise. I remember what it felt like to be looked at like a piece of garbage and white trash and poor. And how dare you do that to anybody else? Ironically, just like people that are abused become abusers, people from poverty often turn around, become wealthy, and then treat people horribly again. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
You would think it would be just the opposite.
It should. It should. But there's such insecurity and hurt built up as when you're younger that if you don't have the ability, and I don't know why I have it, to literally get outside of myself, turn around and look back. And I didn't have that until maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, it was there, but I've really tried to perfect it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to acknowledge the fact that you're not perfect, and some of your thoughts are broken in the way you treat people. And have I been an absent partner? Have I been an absent father? We all know the answer, but we
Yeah.
all look outside for the answer when the answer is between our ears.
Yeah. So what's your goal? What's next for Derek? Is it more businesses or is it more speaking? Is it more public appearances? Is it
Well, listen,
be
I
able to
am an
go
entrepreneur.
back to anonymity if you want it?
You know what I love about that question is most people play it tough, and I'm such a transparent guy. I'm going to say absolutely not. This has been great and fun, but to answer the question as far as my goal, um, I became very wealthy from 20 or late teens until say 42 before I started this 43. But I always had a big hole that was never filled by the things or the money. Although I still had that, broken little boy inside of me that thought that earning would give you strength and respect and all these type, which none of them are true. They're
Yeah.
all great. Money fixes every problem but the one inside of you. But what I've found recently with speaking and pouring into these young entrepreneurs is I'm starting to feel that hole be filled in a meaningful way for one of the first times in my life. So I don't have a financial goal. I've always made money. I will always make money. I don't mean that in a disingenuous way because I understand that it's a skill a lot of people aspire to have. It's just not my primary goal. So I'm not taking it for granted.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a parallel goal of my life forever, as long as I can. But if I had to pick one, I had to make 10 times less for every year that I'm alive for the rest of my life and continue to speak and impact, I would choose that over not doing it and making 10 times more.
Sure.
Understand that's a luxury based on where I am financially, but you asked me and that's transparent.
Well, I don't think that way because I feel like you're a meteorite, right? Like everybody gets an opportunity to be a meteorite. And as you hit, how big of a ripple are you going to leave?
Fair.
If you're trying to become a bigger meteorite
That's correct.
and
Well
ripple.
said. Well said.
You know?
I like that.
So because I'm not in the position, I mean, I do this for free and all that, but I'm still, it blows my mind that 165 countries have heard my show. It's like,
Isn't that crazy?
it's bonkers, man. It's like,
It's bonkers. I have people from Kenya, Nigeria.
yeah,
There's such an info. Like but how great is that? Like how, I think anybody can, but very few get to do that. And at least for me, I don't look at it like, oh, who cares? It's some kid from Kenya. I look at it like, holy shit,
oh,
that's
man.
a kid from Kenya who I hope looks at me and goes, you know what? Maybe if he came from that and he can do it, so can I. I mean, to me,
Exactly
that's
right.
a goal. That's a goal, right? And I'll never be the guy that says, oh, what's your goal? I want to be a billionaire. Shut up. Like, how does that add value to anybody's life? You know what I'm saying? That's the new answer. Everybody wants to be a billionaire. Okay, good for you. What else?
I would.
Yeah, what else? Well, who wouldn't? But that's not a real answer. Like,
Yeah.
if that's your goal, okay.
Well, there's what 8 billion people on the planet. There's 3,000 or so billionaires. Like,
Well, this is a joke. There's three. So I don't know if that's exactly right, but let's say it is. So
give or
there's
take.
3,000 billionaires in the world,
Yeah.
but I think there's like 500,000 on Instagram. Maybe more. Maybe millions.
Yeah, I talked to I almost he was a president of a record label, and we talked about, and he was talking about how, I mean, that was the game. That's like they would rent a jet for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
never fly anywhere, just to
Mm-hmm.
go. They would go take pictures, and they would have outfit changes.
Oh yeah.
And so then they would go change outfits and then go on the plane again and to take more pictures and then get them off and change again and then move the plane a little bit so it was a different backdrop. And
Well, worse than that, there were studios in LA, Texas, all over where it's not even a jet. It's a room that
inside
looks
it,
like a jet.
yeah.
Like it's wild. And the worst part is these people with no experience based on pictures are getting people to send them tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year, getting nothing for it. There's no ramifications, no repercussions. I suspect because the people feel stupid for having done it and
Yeah.
don't report it. But it's wild. And so I had some influencers tell me how much money they were making, $3 million a month. I didn't say anything as well. That's amazing. But I think what's more impressive than making $3 million a month as an influencer is someone like myself making $0 on social media and giving back. To me, that's a bigger accomplishment. I make my money the way I make it. I'm not saying that social media hasn't impacted my core company as far as leads, but at least there's an exchange of value.
Yeah. But yeah. It is interesting.
It is. Yep, absolutely. Hey,
I don't fault anybody. I mean, my daughter worked for celebrities that made money off their social media.
I have no problem with that. And listen,
And,
it is what it is.
and it was a lot of money. It's like,
Millions.
$20 a post, and you're like, whoa. But they actually
100.
affected. They got their money's worth.
That's right. Well, that's more of a marketing thing, but yeah, listen, social media is a wild thing. Attention is the new currency, without question.
So you have the Aspire event coming up. This is going to air this Friday, so it's coming up Monday, Tuesday in Atlanta.
5th and 6th. Was that Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
What's that like, man? I mean, you're starting to hang out with some ballers.
Yeah, it's a great lineup. I mean, Kevin Hart, Alex Rodriguez, Kevin O'Leary, Rick Ross,
T-Pain, yeah.
T-Pain. Yep, I've heard they're all very excited to meet me.
I'll ask them.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the case. No, but listen, it's been great. Again, whether this is believed or not, I'm pretty, I'm not disingenuous in saying this. It's cool to hang out with these people and meet them, and some of them I like, and some of them I prefer never to meet again. But being on the stage, again, it's feeding my soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it's cool to hang out with, have a party at Rick Ross's house, all that stuff. I'm not going to lie. It is a good time.
Well, I think it more like if your ultimate goal, kind of like with my podcast, is to get out to more people.
That's it.
It's kind of a side bet, right? It's awesome.
Yep.
But
and Aspire is, the largest at what they do. They're the best.
Yeah.
They have the biggest stars, both A-list and rising. They're not just charging money for feel better today. They're teaching people how to invest. They've got funds that are meaningfully returning money. Dan Fleischman, I cannot say enough about him. He is one of the greatest human beings I've ever met. He doesn't need to do anything for anybody, but he spends a disproportionate amount of time giving back and putting things together. He's just I have met more good people in the past 18 months that don't want anything other than to give value to me, which is a very new experience for me. So it's rather enjoyable. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I kind of know the answer, but what's the next business that you kind of look at and go, that'd be interesting to get involved? Or is it just kind of a shotgun? Hey, this came up.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually more of the second. I mean, I am an opportunistic entrepreneur. I've got, something like 3,000 companies a month now asking for partnership and JV and all that type of stuff. So the hardest thing right now is saying no to really good opportunities. Because you only do so many good opportunities, you only do so many great opportunities. So sifting through that is very difficult. And I hate saying no because I always like to help. I always like to see people succeed. But I'm doing a lot of board member positions now,
Okay.
with some really, really exciting companies, which I'm happy to share because I think they're going to change, industries. Spintel is one of them. LinkMe is another. Legacy and Breakout. I mean, there are some really massive young companies that are going to change the landscape of a lot of industries. And having done this social media now, they've reached out and said, "Hey, we don't know what we don't know. We know what we know."
Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to every business being the same, but show us how we go from 10 million to 100 million, 100 million to a billion. We want to go public. We've got, partnership disputes, board deadlocks, the stuff that I love. Like I love solving the puzzle. If you
Yeah.
give me a problem, I get excited, right? So yeah. So the next opportunity, I could tell you I knew what it was today, but it might change tomorrow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you put limits on like a small company worth $1 million comes to you? Is it worth your time, or do you send it off, or I mean, how would you approach the smaller business?
Yeah, well, that's so. The answer is, it's for me. It's not based on size. It's based on opportunity. So I'm not just saying go away, $1 million company. But if I see a lot of promise, I've also got my core company, 3F Management, which that's what we do. My COO and my downline, they manicure and mature companies to a point where, and you always get me. You just might not get me as much as if you're about to go public because my attention needs to be here.
Yeah.
But whether I've got a $500 million company or a $50,000 company that I thought had a bunch of promise, you're still meeting with me face to face. And I don't want to say no one does that, but I think that's a miss where some are not having that interaction, because besides it just being important to your partner, which just because you're a big wig doesn't mean that's not your partner and they deserve your time. I think stuff falls through the cracks, and I know that because it's happened to me.
Yeah. Well, like I got the gyms. Like you were involved with the gyms, and you bought all the fitness gyms and all that, and then you sold them. But
Well,
I
I
mean,
didn't buy them. I didn't buy them.
well,
I started them at
yeah,
22 years old and built them up and sold them. Yeah.
but that made sense because you're a bodybuilder, and it was kind of be like if I did jujitsu gyms because I do jujitsu. It's kind of a
Yeah.
passion, but
Well, ironically, I didn't do it because I loved working out. I built my company, Around the Clock Fitness, out of spite.
out of spite.
Out of spite. I mean, I'm happy to tell you a story, but every time people ask me why did you build the gyms, is it because you love fitness? I said no, I built it 100% out of spite. It's true, absolute true story. But and so built it up over 13 years. Had an incredible exit to a publicly traded company. 3 months before COVID, that company went bankrupt. Took them back for $0, rebranded, stabilized, sold them again.
That's a win.
It was not a loss for sure. And some people might say how lucky. I said, not sure it was lucky.
You know, did the pandemic hurt or help your business?
Pandemic saved my life personally, and we can get into why. And I did very well through the pandemic.
I'm
So it did,
finding that a lot of people are saying that.
yeah, did very well through the pandemic. And personally, it gave me an opportunity to address some things that I had been neglecting personally. And I think that, besides being the reason I think I'm so open now, it's made me a better partner, friend, even father, because I'm a better me.
Yeah. The pandemic was an interesting thing though,
It really was.
because the guy I just had on this last week, writer director, got stuck in Australia. He's from Australia originally, but he was there visiting, and they shut the island down. They weren't letting people leave, so he wrote and directed a movie.
Hey,
It's out on Amazon right now.
isn't that crazy?
It's like, and I go, how did you? I go, what was it? He goes, well, fortunately, all the actors weren't working, so I could get. They worked on the cheap because they were doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I mean, any time in life, because it's the first time I could ever imagine where things actually slowed down. Everybody, although not everyone did it, had a chance to really look inside and say, what do I want to do here?
yeah,
So it changed lives. Not all positive, but for the ones that took advantage in the way that I did, and it sounds like your friend did, it changed the trajectory of my life forever.
and yeah, well, about 18 months. If you were in the middle of COVID when you kind of hit the Forbes and all that.
Tail end of it because
Yeah,
of 2020, yeah. So, but yeah, coming into it, yep, and it just set me up. Yeah, it was. I hate to say COVID was good,
I know you can't say that.
but good can come out of bad, and bad can come out of good.
Well, that's hopefully it's. I mean, I told you before, like how I got the job I have now is because of
Yeah,
the shutdown. It's like,
that's right. Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and this isn't my phrase because I took it from somebody else. But the other day, my daughter came home and said something that showed was bad news, and I said, "Good." I don't know who that was. It might have been Joe Rogan, but now that's my new thing. Something bad, good. So like, what?
oh,
Shut up! It's not good. I'm like, well, we'll see.
I'm gonna try that on my friend. Got choked out. Yeah, good. What do you
Good.
mean? Good.
Good. Did you learn how he choked you out? Maybe it won't happen next time.
Well, Hoist Gracie, winner of the first UFC and all that.
Greatest ever. Yep.
He was my first instructor, and he always said the only reason I got good is because I've been choked out more times than you have been.
Well, then there you go. See, good.
And I'm like, okay,
But
yeah,
actually, but there's truth. That statement's so beautiful because it's true in everything in life, business, life, everything. It's so true. And I've said a variation of that is, again, I think we said it a little bit here today. I'm not smarter than anybody. I've just messed up in every way you can mess up, and I learned from it. Like I'm not special because I don't mess up. I think I'm good that I rarely mess up the same way twice.
I got you.
Now I do like to say that I'll try anything twice, but that's more about fun stuff.
That's for a different podcast, my friend.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Well, when's the documentary coming out?
End of Q1 2024.
I'm coming up.
Yep. Yep.
That's pretty exciting, right? Are you nervous or are you?
No, I'm not nervous. It's in a word, surreal.
Do you have final
know?
say? Do you get to look at the edited or is it just
Yeah, no, yeah. It's a wonderful deal. I own half of the rights to the documentary and have co-final edit. So we can agree to disagree and blah blah blah. But I don't think that's going to happen for me. And I think it's not going to happen because I want my truth out there. I embrace my screw ups. I embrace my past because it's made me who I am. And as we talked about, I hope that some people see that and realize that no matter what you have done or how you've made mistakes, it's only your future if it doesn't stay in the past. People carry all of these things that happen to them with them throughout their entire life, and that's a choice. The only path behind you, the only path in life is the one behind you.
Yeah, yeah, because you made the path in front.
That's right.
You're going to help people, and you won't even realize it, though.
That's the hope.
There's a lot of people that won't admit to it or
Okay.
won't want to talk about it, but they're going to hear your story and go, "I get it,"
and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So you're doing good things, my friend.
I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate the effort you're putting into your social media now.
So in closing, I need a hat.
Okay.
But I need the ears to be manicured around these big boys.
They're not that big. Craig Shoemaker is a comedian. I got him a size 8 big hat.
Yep.
Like custom made almost. I got him a hat. I hooked him up.
Very good.
We'll have to get you some cowboy boots and get you a hat or whatever.
All right. Well, I wear pointy shoes, so cowboy boots are not that far off.
Well, we'll get you whatever you need, buddy.
Very, very good. I'm excited. You let me know when.
I'll reach out to you.
Very good.
Thanks, Derik. I appreciate the time, bud.
Pleasure is mine.
Have a good week.
All right, too.